tenure of the locomotive. You see, it is often a bit of a challenge for the engineer up there in the cab of the locomotive to see very far behind of its tender. So they did start building turntables to solve this problem. Now this turntable that we have here was built in 1916 by the American Bridge and Iron Company in a town of Ambridge, Pennsylvania. Now after it was built there, it would go on to the town of Macon, Georgia, where it would serve operations for the Central of Georgia Railway. The table would later find itself in Cedar Town, Georgia, where it would also serve there for the Central of Georgia as well. The wood comes to the hands of TVRM, and this table has been running here since 1982. Now, back in the 1910s, when this turntable was built, it was not motorized like it is today. This turntable was originally an Armstrong table, which means that this table was in fact turned entirely by hand. Now, believe it or not, just 4 people. Each person would be positioned at each end of this table. There would have been a set of handbars that would have allowed them to turn it by hand. Now this table weighs 80 tons alone, and that is already very heavy, of course, by itself. But consider that they would have not just been turning the weight of the turntable, they would have also been turning the weight of the steam locomotive as well. As I said before, we do have this table motorized nowadays instead of it being an Armstrong table. So instead of having 4 of you folks coming up here to help us turn this thing around, instead this table is going to be turned by the strongest man alive, your conductor today, Jason. He is so strong, in fact, that he is able to turn this entire thing with just 1 finger. So why don't we go ahead and bring 630 onto the turntable, and he's going to show y'all how strong he is. Ladies and gentlemen, steam locomotive 630 was built in 1904 by ALCO, that is short for the American Locomotive Company, built for the Southern Railway as a 280 consolidation. Now the 280 refers to the steam locomotive's wheel arrangement. You see this steam locomotive right here has 2 pilot wheels in the front, 8 driving wheels in the middle, and 2 trailing wheels underneath the cab. The 630 here would serve the Southern Railway for 48 years, primarily running on the Murphy branch, until its eventual retirement in the June of 1952. Now, sometime later, the steam locomotive would go on to be the 207 of the East Tennessee and Western North Carolina Railroad in Johnson City, Tennessee. Now, it would remain there for a while until 1967, where it would be taken back by Southern Railway. The Southern Railway decided to take the 630 back in exchange for a diesel locomotive. Now, the Southern Railway decided to get the steam locomotive back in order to make it a part of their steam excursion program that they had going at the time. The steam locomotive would continue to run on the main line until 1978. Now, in that same year, TVRM would become the steam locomotive's custodian in a lease agreement with the Southern Railway. Now, it would remain in operation until 1989, when it would be retired due to the need for a major overhaul and restoration. Now, in 1999, Southern Railway successor Norfolk Southern would donate the locomotive to TVRM, and in 2001, the locomotive's restoration would begin, and after an entire decade of restoration work and maintenance, So the Railway 633 would make a triumphant return to service in 2011. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that is our 1916 turntable turning our 19 locomotive. So we give a round of applause to our engineer up there in the cab, as well as a hand for your conductor today to turn our turntable. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to hear some more history from me, you folks are free to join me up here at the crossing, and I will take you guys to the back track. Yes, sir. I'm not entirely sure about that. We sure. I'll have you go. If you recommend it. What if I went back still has about 8 years on it? Yeah. I'm hoping that was a good 16 ago. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our back shop here in East Chattanooga, named the Soule shop after Bob Soule, one of our founding members of our museum. Now, in this building is where the magic happens. And by magic, I, of course, mean a majority of the restoration work that we do on our railroad equipment. Now, I have a question for you folks. Would any of you like to guess the average time that it took to restore a steam locomotive back in the golden age of steam? Well, on average, it usually took about 1 month. And of course, this is because back then, all of the railroads and the locomotive manufacturers, they would have already had all those parts made. So it would have been a lot easier and they would have been able to build them a lot quicker. And as you heard me say out there about the 630, we were working on her here in our shop for a total of 10 years. Now, I would like to say that there are two main reasons for this major difference in time. Reason number one is that, well, what I explained to you folks, we don't have all the parts that they would have had made back then. And reason number two is that not a whole lot of people nowadays still have the skill to restore a steam locomotive. Unfortunately, nowadays, if you want to have that skill, if you want to learn how to do that stuff, you have to come here to railroad museums such as ours here that have operational steam locomotives or work on them. You see, in this day and age, the skill of restoring such equipment has sort of become a lost art, unfortunately. and now has to be passed down from person to person. Now, you've heard me talk a bit about the Southern Railway on our trip today. I have mentioned it a few times. The Southern Railway was a Class 1 railroad, and so was the Norfolk and Western. They were both Class 1 railroads. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because they provided passenger service for people back then. Trains were the major mode of transportation back in those days. But over the years, unfortunately, the reputation of being the major and dominant mode of transportation has declined, unfortunately. Now, cars and planes have become just about everyone's go-to mode of transportation is cars and also planes. So with those two things in mind, they did play an unfortunate role in the decline of American railroads in terms of their passenger service. And many railroads were sadly not able to recover from this. Many railroads had to close down or merge with each other. The Southern did, in fact, merge with Norfolk and Western to become Norfolk Southern. You see,